So what is all this here? Well, this is a video on MSNBC called "The Kids Are Not Okay, The Nightmare Around Modern Dating." And this whole video is women talking about how it's difficult to date men in the modern times. So let's dive in. Before we do, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed. You can find me on Rumble, Twitter, YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey.
This week on Morning Mika, the kids, and actually adults too, are not okay. Percy?
Yeah?
Wait, your name's Percy?
Yeah?
Percy? Sorry, continue. Percy? Doesn't anyone anymore?
That was Jennifer Lawrence in a scene from No Hard Feelings, finding a bunch of teens and 20-somethings glued to their phones at a house party. It underscores a troubling reality right now. A growing number of younger Americans aren't dating. They're not hanging out. And no, they're not even hooking up.
Yeah, that's because the algorithm is addictive. Where have you been? There have been movies, feature films made about this phenomenon. People are addicted to the screen. I used to run into the same thing when I was on Facebook. I'm barely on Facebook now because it's too toxic. I can't go on there without being yelled at for being the racist. Even though I'm married to a woman who isn't the same race as me. What the hell? And I used to go on there a lot actually. Let me clarify this. I would spend like 6 hours a day just scrolling through the feed because it's addictive. And then I realized that this is a huge waste of time. And I basically stopped Facebook. Now, I'm running into a similar issue with Twitter. Scroll through that feed, the algorithm gives me what I click on. If you haven't noticed this about Twitter, the algorithm feeds you what you click on, what you share. So if you want to change the algorithm, what it feeds you, don't click on stuff, don't share stuff, and you'll start getting other. Go search for things that you would rather see or that you think is better for your mental health, and then start clicking on those things, and then you'll get more of those in your feed. Anyway, these people, of course, at MSNBC can't figure this out, that people are addicted to the screen.
For so many women who want to date men, dating has become a total nightmare. And
I like how they're showing these two ladies that we were talking about months ago now. The one on the left went to the singles comedy event. I think it was a comedy event. And she was the only person who showed up and sat at the singles section. And then the woman on the right was lying. She's talking about how it's so hard for her to find her person. But if you go onto her, I think it's TikTok. It was TikTok because I don't have Instagram. So TikTok. See, the video before, she put out this one here where she's crying about how she can't find a man. She was complaining about how she just dumped some guy who had Peter Pan syndrome. So, get out of my life sort of attitude. And then she's all like, oh, I can't find the right man for me. Well, whose fault is it? You got men throwing themselves at you. Your standards are just wrong.
there are a number of reasons why. I'm Mika Brzezinski here with Simone Sanders-Townsend, Huma Abedin, and Jen Psaki.
Yes, a gaggle of feminazis. Just what I want to hear from. Well, it's entertaining anyway.
I have heard from a lot of young women who want to date young men that there are none. There are no guys. They're trying to connect. They often use dating apps, but find a total lack of connection. And it seems that...
Yep, it's all men's fault. It's all men's. It's what she said there. She said, there are none. There are no men. Yeah. Where are all the good men hiding at? Well, both men and women have to step up their game, I think. But it's women who need to lower their standards. That's the problem.
That the men they are meeting don't really share the same priorities if they show up. Women, especially career-driven women, say the men they're meeting are more interested in sex and not looking for a deeper connection.
And whose fault is that? This is all women's fault. Women created this monster because women started giving up the goat. If you don't go out there and just like bend over and take it from every Tom, Harry, Dick that comes along and just think, oh, that's it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's fine. I ran into this when I was dating. There were women I was like, oh, we're getting into a relationship. This is cool. We had sex. Okay, great. And then a few days later, she's like, oh yeah, I went out and hooked up with this guy. And I'm like, what? What about us? What about us? I'm the one who was always looking for the relationship, not the women. Now, not to say that I was the prize pig, because I certainly was not a good earner when I was younger. I didn't value that sort of thing. And I didn't want a gold digger. It was part of the reason why. I didn't want a woman who's like, oh, your money, that's what I want. Yeah, it's hard out there, but really it comes down to the women creating this problem. They voted for this stuff. They are the ones being promiscuous. They're the ones who are being single mothers. They're the ones who can get their bag, can have it all.
And that it's becoming more and more of a problem. So what's changing? Because not that long ago, people used to meet each other through work, let's be honest, or through friends, maybe at a bar or in a college campus. And it gave people a chance to actually learn about each other, to break through the filters, to demonstrate kindness and show commitment and values, to actually earn affection. But today, So many people are living life through a screen.
Yeah, and even that, they're gonna say like that this is what is causing the problem is the screen and the men. But I was always the guy who was like, yeah, let's get into a relationship, and the girls are always running away. I can't emphasize that enough. That it's the girls who don't want the relationships, the girls who run away when you come on too strong. And we see this throughout the dating community. That girls, if you're like, hey, this is me, let's try for a long-term situation, they're like, no, what are you? Like, are you Dusty? What are you like? You creeper? What are you like? You're a low value man. You're a low value man because you see me as your potential long term partner, but you don't even know me. I'm like, dude, I do not have the energy to get to freaking know you and on a week by week basis. For how many weeks do I have to go through this getting to know you, taking you out, showing you a good time, always being on, always entertaining, and yeah, do I want to dive headfirst into a situation with some girl that I don't know or like? I mean, can't we just hang out and act as if until we decide that, hey, look, this is either not going to work or it's going to work? This is the way that it was, I think, more back when I was young. Like people just like young people just come together and hang out, and I didn't do that. So I'm not saying that. So don't use me as the example. Basically, is what I'm saying. I didn't like to go out and hang out. I just want to do my own thing, pretty much.
They're not going out nearly as much, not to church, not to movies, or even to the office. Opportunities to fall in love are falling by the wayside, meaning people are making decisions by swiping left on their smartphones rather than truly learning to connect.
So it says here on the screen, there's a sickness where we don't see people as people because of the apps. We always think that there's something better out there. That's a woman thing. Men do it too, I'm sure. But most men learn real quick. It's like, oh, I got to kind of settle for what I can get.
The highs, the lows, the disappointments, all of that stuff. It's all part of the process. And it's affecting mental health too. According to a recent study of people over the age of 18, those who used swipe-based dating apps experienced significantly higher rates of psychological distress, anxiety, and depression. Another study showed a link between using dating apps and experiencing loneliness, dissatisfaction with life, and this is a big one, a feeling of exclusion from the world.
Well, go out and be in the world then. This is an entirely you problem. If you're on your screens instead of out in the world, that's your choice. Why are you on your screens all the time? And that's what they're talking about. I know. They're like, oh, yeah, it's the screen's fault and it's men's fault. I get it, but go out to a coffee shop. Go out to the beach. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of places in the world where there's no beach. Go out to, whatever, the bike trail, the river, wherever it is that you can go and be out in nature. Go out to the coffee shop. Go out to the pub. Find things in your local area to do. Volunteer, all these, go to the gym. I go to the gym. That's kind of a social thing. So, all these different things that you can do. And when you're at the gym, like actually smile and say hi to people. Don't just be like, I'm doing my thing, leave me alone. Wearing your big earphones where you can't hear anything going on around you. You're only hearing what's going on in those earphones. That's ridiculous. If you're out in a public place, you want to be able to hear what people are saying. You want to be able to communicate with people instead of having to get their attention and stuff. It's ridiculous.
Feeling so left out.
So women believe the romantic priorities are fundamentally different from those of guys their age. No, I don't think that's really that big of a problem. And in addition to this, date older. Go for a man who's 20 or 30 years older than you. He would really appreciate it, and I bet he'd treat you a lot better, and I bet he has more money.
When women do go to coffee shops, what we're hearing is that they try, or to a club or the grocery store, anything where they get out and interact with people. They say the men that they want to meet just don't share their ideals.
That is 100% bullcrap. Okay, maybe not the pub, but you tell me, men watching this, how many women have approached you at the grocery store? How many women have approached you at a coffee shop? I frequent coffee shops. I have for years now, ever since I moved to the area I live in now. It's kind of been like my thing because when I first moved out here, I had to move my car, I think once a week or once every other week or once a month, something, because of street sweeping. So I just go to the coffee shop down the street and park there and, sit for a few hours. And then I would come back, and I got into the habit of kind of like, oh yeah, I can go hang out in coffee shops and stuff. And I don't see girls approaching guys at all. Sometimes a girl would be very interested, and if you approach her, then she's receptive. That does happen, but I don't see girls approaching guys. So
it's partly because so many young men are spending their lives Also logged in, overly influenced by a flood of whatever you can find online: porn, video games, toxic masculinity. Who needs the real thing when you can get something better, and I put that in quotes, by scrolling? Here's what Scott Galloway, professor of marketing at NYU, told us on Morning Joe about some of the reasons why men are becoming like this.
I think you have the most talented, well-resourced people in the world and companies trying to convince a young man that he can have a reasonable facsimile of life in his basement behind a screen. You don't need friends. Go on Reddit or Discord. You don't need to get a job. Go on Robinhood or Coinbase and trade crypto and stocks. You don't need to go through the rejection and the expense and the humiliation and working out and having a plan and humor and showering to get a romantic relationship. You have you.
Did you hear what he just said? We got to go back and watch this stuff. It's crazy. This is insane. Hold on. All right, let's try this again here. We'll do it with subtitles on and see if they bring up subtitles here.
You don't need to go through the rejection and the expense and the humiliation and working out and having a plan and humor and showering to get a romantic relationship. You have you.
You don't have to go to the gym and have a plan and shower and have humor. That's a freaking ton of work. Why would I want to do all that on the hopes that some girl will like me? Some freaking cave troll that's 100 pounds overweight and has an illegitimate kid. That's her world. Why do I have to go and do all these different things for just to get rejected? I mean, it's so. How many times have you been rejected out there, man? I'm sure it's a lot. If you've tried to get a girlfriend, I'm sure you've been rejected. I've been rejected so many times I can't even count. And it's because whatever it is, I don't have what women want. Whatever that is, I don't want to go through all this trouble. It's so difficult just to have a conversation with a woman. You got to make her laugh, otherwise she doesn't like you. Why? Why can't we just be human with each other? Why does everything have to be a big... It's too exhausting. Whatever, forget it. This is why men don't want to date.
Porn. So we have an entire generation, especially of young men, who are out home, sequestering from society and missing out on what it means. There's a reason romantic comedies are 2 hours and not 15 minutes. True victory in life is hard. Going out, meeting someone, finding mentors, finding mates, that stuff is hard. But that's what real victory in real life is like. And because...
Again, we have this feminist point of view. The woman is not the prize. She is not to, be the end goal of your struggle, of your strife. If that were the case, then she should be an amazing thing to have. And she's just not. Not anymore. Maybe there was a time. But what do you get out of the deal? You get an unpleasant relationship in the end that you want to leave. Why would you want to put yourself through all that? Just to be like, okay, well, look, there's a person that I've known now for how many decades, and she's no longer attractive, and we no longer do anything physical. And I've heard all her stories, and I've dealt with her attitude for how many times, how long. It's okay. This guy, I used to have respect for him, but when you start talking about this stuff, not anymore.
Because a lot of men feel rejected on dating apps. The number of jobs that are accessible to them has gone down. You have essentially a group of men who are saying, I want a low-risk entry into life, and they go down a rabbit hole. When they don't have social connections, and they don't get out, and they don't have the prospect of a romantic relationship, they're more prone to conspiracy theory, they're more prone to misogynistic content, they're less likely to believe in climate change, and some become really bad citizens. We are producing too many of the most dangerous person in the world, and that is a young, broke, and lonely young man.
Wow. As Professor Galloway pointed out, 1 in 3 relationships used to begin at work. Now young people are not going into the office as often. And if you are a young man at work, are you more or less inclined to express some sort of romantic interest in a potential partner now than you were 40 years ago? The answer is clearly no. And by the way, men and women have been told in many places that if you have feelings for someone at work, you have to go to HR first. That'll kill the moment. And I get why that's the policy. I get how we got here. Having said that,
we got here because of women. Get women out of the workforce. Put them back in the home where they belong. And this problem goes away. Because women will then be dependent on men to survive. And men won't be walking on eggshells when they're at work.
Unforeseen consequences of the Me Too movement, or of Me Too in general, and the problems that began the movement, that's a show we need to do at some point. And we have to have a really honest conversation about that. But that's not this show. I'm just saying having to go to HR is kind of a hard start. Jen, why don't you start? What are the biggest concerns you have here?
Yeah, look, Mika, first of all, I met my husband at work at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. He asked me out over email and brought me ice cream. It was a much more traditional way of meeting someone. Look, I think the biggest concern I have here is the mental health impact on young people. And we've seen that in statistics and a ton of reporting about the disconnect. And you just went over a fair amount of it for men, certainly, and also for women. And I just think anecdotally of talking to a lot of women I work with, who I have the pleasure of working with on my team, they, men and women have been wanting to just have sex for decades, right? That's not new. I think they're still probably they're hooking up still, right? But it's more about that deeper connection. And as Scott said, relationships are work. Emotional connections are work, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever it may be, or a mentor relationship. And there's such a cotton candy aspect of the world we're living in right now. That's also a fantasy world, right? You mentioned porn. That's, of course, on the sex side. But it's also just how people portray themselves on social media. It's not connected to the difficulty and the struggle that often you have to go through in order to have the most rewarding relationship, the most rewarding friendships, the most rewarding mentorships. And the mental health impact is the biggest concern, because connection is what makes life joyful. And that to me is what I worry about the most.
All right, she lied. She said, these connections are difficult. If a woman is into you, it will be so easy. It will be so easy. She'll just open all the doors and you can just walk right through them and you can be with her. But if she doesn't do that, if she doesn't open those doors, if she makes it difficult for you, she's not that into you.
Yeah, Simone, Americans are more lonely and isolated than ever. There's data on this. And what do you make of Professor Galloway's remarks on Morning Joe that we're producing too many of the most dangerous people in the world, namely young, broken, lonely men?
Mika, I thought that a lot of Professor Galloway's comments were interesting. I listened to the whole segment twice yesterday because, one, I think that people are going out. And also, I don't think that I didn't meet my husband at work. I actually met my husband going out. I was at an event. After the event, some folks introduced, at the time, he was what was known in Washington, D.C. as the Nightmare. And some folks that I know asked me, oh, do you know the Nightmare? I said, I've heard of him. I do not know him. I've never had the pleasure. And that was I like to say we've been dating ever since. I think he might take issue with my timeline. So I would argue that people are going out in different social settings. But I also think the apps, for example, are not terrible. One of my best girlfriends met her husband on the apps. I know a lot of people who are meeting folks on the apps, and it is opening up, frankly, the world of the dating pool bigger than just who comes to your neighborhood bar or who you might see in the office. And so I think that is a good thing. Look, I think about these lonely, broke, dangerous men. I don't really know, Mika. I'm not sold on the lonely, broke, and dangerous men. I think that we are producing a generation of younger people.
Why do you think that Europe is being flooded with immigrants from the third world? And most of them are men.
People who do not have hustle and drive, and the lack of hustle and drive one is where I do agree with Professor Galloway, in that there's a younger generation of people who would rather be home than go out and socialize. But I think the idea that folks are not going out, that folks are not socializing, is not true. More so, I think it's that the pool of men that women would like to date is smaller. There's more women than men. It has always been that way. When I moved to Washington, D.C., that's what everyone said. It's like for every one guy, there's 10 women that want to date him. So.
Yeah, yeah, that's how it works. Women outnumber men 10 to 1. Yeah. If that were the case, what would happen is just polygamy. Be a problem. The problem is you ladies, your standards are too high. You want all the sixes, plus he's got to be good looking, have a good sense of style, have a good car, all these other things. Yeah, you can't. You just got to lower your standard. You got to be realistic about your standards. Are you an average looking woman? Then you're going to get an average looking man. Probably a less than average looking man, honestly. You should be the attractive one in the relationship, ladies. This woman here up in the upper right is freaking nasty. She's disgusting. I don't know how she ever landed a man. I would never even look twice at her. What's going on with men and their standards? Well, they have to lower them way down. Because that's what they have to do to get any kind of woman. I don't know what her husband looks like. Maybe he's a cave troll too. But yeah, it's ridiculous to sit here and think that there's 10 women who want one man. Yeah, they want the top 10% man. For every one top 10% man, there's 10 women that want it easily. Yeah.
There's that.
Yeah. Well, I see the numbers that you're talking about. I really connect with your reticence about the lonely, broken, dangerous. I guess the inference that you have to have a woman to fix that. Like, you can fix that yourself, and not be. I hear you about.
No, you can't. There's nothing like the touch of a woman. sorry. You don't know that because you're stupid, really. That's why. Because, sorry, if you were frustrated in the bedroom, you would want the touch of a man. If you weren't getting enough action that way, you would want a man to take care of that for you. See, men, they want that from a woman, but, it's bad for us to want that from a woman, whatever.
Personal responsibility for sure. But I'm seeing in my world and hearing from a lot of young people who work with me, who work for me, who they don't go out as much. There's like nowhere to go or no one to go with, or it's the same old every time, and they're on the phones so much. And whom I'm wondering, given the consequence.
You know who I usually see on their phones so much? It's women. Men, yeah, I see them on their phones too much, but mostly it's women on the phones, not men.
Of loneliness and isolation from a policy perspective, because the Surgeon General recently declared the loneliness is an epidemic. Is there an obligation on the part of our government or policies to address some of these growing social disconnects that are happening in our country?
So, I mean, I agree with so much. My mind is just spinning with thoughts hearing all three of you. And I'm glad you referenced the Surgeon General, because the four of us talk about this a lot, that we are pioneers. We're raising a generation, surrounded by technology that we just didn't have access to growing up, and we're still seeing the short and long-term impact of that. I love that you just mentioned the Surgeon General report. We talk about it in the context of just this. We're talking about it.
Yeah.
When you look at things like smoking, it's not that we think people are going to quit smoking or stop using tobacco, but when you buy a cigarette, it will say there's a warning that this is bad for your health. I was at an office meeting the other day and I saw, a box saying, here's, if you need Narcan, it's in this lockbox, get help. It's not that we think people are going to stop using drugs and that there might never be an overdose again. We are aware of it. We have a solution to it. And this is all part of public policy and the importance of having public policy. And I think to have that 80+ page report, number one, you have a Surgeon General who addresses his own issues with loneliness, deep feelings of loneliness, and what governments can do and schools and communities and parents can do. And to both what Jen and Simone just said, I think about this. I met my ex-husband at work, and I met my current boyfriend, and I will say, in a period where I was feeling very lonely and was invited to this party, I did not want to go. I just wanted to stay at home and just probably be on my phone, watch The Diplomat or something. Mm-hmm. I dragged myself to that party, and that is how I met him. And so
So you see right there, case in point, it's women's fault. It's women's are causing this problem. I want to be on my phone. I don't want to go to a party. And when I was young, I would get invited to parties, and you show up to a party and there's just dudes. It's like, what's the point of me being here? I don't, there's nothing here that I care about enough to be here. I'm going to go do my own thing.
We have to talk about it, but we also have to be open to experiences. Sometimes even at our generation, we have to push ourselves to do it.
Yeah, I love what you just said, Huma, because, and Simone, to your point that people are going out, they are, but there are a lot of people who are in Huma's position where it takes everything in them just to get out the door. And there's a growing number of cases like that, where the phone and remote work, and you're
going to see this more and more, because you ladies, you four ladies here especially, keep wanting to vote to allow different cultures to exist in this country. We don't have a homogenous culture. So people are frustrated when they go out because people are dicks. People have a different way of viewing the world instead of being on the same page, generally speaking. They just don't want to go out and deal with it. It's a big headache. It's a big hassle.
Into such a bad cycle.
A rut.
You don't want to go out anymore.
Yeah.
A rut.
It makes me
Yes,
think
Simone.
about the importance of your friends and the people that know you best in your circle, because you are correct. Yeah. And, even sometimes I'm the friend that is dragging people out. It's like, no, come, you have to come. And
I can
the
see
friend
that.
hadn't dragged me, I like to party. But it is the importance of the circle, and I think that that's maybe also something. If people are feeling this innate sense of loneliness, even if they know people that are their friends may not know. And so that's the importance of checking up on folks.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and seeing them and feeling them and understanding and connecting. Up next, we asked you, our viewers, for solutions.
Yeah, so they're going to ask people for solutions to this problem. It's very simple. Women, go out and be in public and be polite, and be kind, and be generous, and be warm, be receptive to a man's advances. No, you can't do that, because he's going to be creepy. He's going to be rude. He's going to be mean. He's going to be this. He's going to be that. He's going to be blah, blah, blah. Look, not all men are like that. Some men are going to be respectful of you. Some men are just going to take it and be like, okay, yeah, whatever. It's fine. You rejected me. Or maybe just don't reject them. And I've been rejected I don't know how many times. Why? What is it that you think you're going to get out there that's better than me? Just by not knowing me, just by looking at me on surface level. Really, What is it? I can understand if you were taller than me, or if I was, if you maybe were close to my height but shorter than me, I want a guy who's a little bit taller. Okay, I get that. I want a woman who's shorter than me. That's the only one real drawback I have to my physical appearance. Period. That's it. Not like I'm hideously deformed or something, or have a weird looking face. In fact, when I was a kid, I used to pose for a professional artist because she liked how I looked. So I used to do a lot of posing for her, and she would draw me. But for whatever reason, I've been rejected more times than I've been accepted. It's not men rejecting me. I'm not going up and asking men for dates. It's women. Why? What is it about me that you don't like? You don't really know me. We have like a 10-minute conversation. Things seem to be going well. Yet I'm not what you're looking for somehow. It's not men, because I've gone out with women that I'm not that attracted to. So just barely enough attraction there for me to go, yeah, she's cool. I could get with her. But yeah, men aren't as discerning as women. We know that. I don't even have to talk about it, because we know, biologically speaking, men want to have more partners than women want to have. So anyway, that's all I got for this time. MSNBC, of course, they're going to save the world with their stupid rhetoric from the Womalos here. I'll see you in the next video.